Hello and welcome to Byju's IAS. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article says adding heft to diplomacy with some help from science. The article here is speaking about vaccine diplomacy. Before we understand what this article is all about, what the author is trying to convey, let's have some brief idea about the terms used in this article. First up, it makes a mention of diplomacy. What is diplomacy? It is an art of negotiating with another country. Now we have to look at scientific or what is called a science-based diplomacy. Let's say for example, there is a country. It has its scientific expertise. It uses all its scientific advancement to solve some of the international problems so that we can enhance on the economic prosperity. So the scientific expertise which is used between two different countries so that they can enhance on the economic prosperity is what is called a science-based diplomacy. So when it comes to science-based diplomacy, every country has its own foreign policy objectives. These foreign policy objectives, when it is met by use of science, that is what is called as scientific or science-based diplomacy. So what are we doing here? We are facilitating international science cooperation. We are using science cooperation to improve international relations between both the countries, which means that there is an advancement and negotiations using the principles of science. One of the subset of the scientific or the science-based diplomacy is what is called as vaccine diplomacy. What is this vaccine diplomacy? This is a concept where one country manufactures the vaccine, or there is one country which has entered into an agreement with another country for manufacturing of vaccine, and these countries export or import vaccines is what is called as vaccine diplomacy. So the article here is primarily focusing on the vaccine diplomacy of India. What has India done? India has two of the important vaccines. One is Covishield, the other is Covaxin. With its advancement in the manufacturing of vaccines, India is also called as the pharmacy of the world, where it was able to export vaccines to multiple countries around the world. It can be its neighbors, it can be West Asian countries, or it can be South American countries as well. In all these cases, India, the pharmacy of the world, vaccine manufacturer of the world, was able to export the vaccines, which means the author is trying to convey that India has established what is called as vaccine diplomacy. Because India was able to export vaccines to number of countries, India has received appreciation. Let's take some of the examples. We have President Jair Bolsonaro of Brazil, who has appreciated India. We have Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who in the past may have criticized India but has currently said that India is advancing equality when it comes to vaccine. Then we have other countries and regions like Dominican Republic and Barbados, which has also appreciated that India is able to help the global southern community. In this particular backdrop, we have to understand the background, the foundations, and the very basics when it comes to the science-based application, how it evolved when it comes to India. The author brings into picture some of the important tools, policies, mechanisms, and schemes which was initiated immediately after the Indian independence. Let's look into what the author is trying to say. We have the first Prime Minister of India, which happens to be Jawaharlal Nehru. He gave priorities to the Indian science development. He knew the importance of science and its development. He said that there could be advantages of science which is constructive in nature, or there can be disadvantages of science when it comes to destructive power of science. What are these advantages? Let's say for example, when we are speaking about nuclear energy, this can be used for advantages and constructive purposes where you would be able to extract electricity out of it, and at the same time the same nuclear energy can also be used for destructive power where it can be used as a bomb as well, or a nuclear missile. In all these cases, we have the first Prime Minister of India who was able to understand that science has advantage and disadvantages, can be used for both constructive and destructive purposes, and he laid emphasis on what is called as the interstate rivalries as well. This is where we have the first Prime Minister of India who gave massive amount of powers to all the great personalities of India back then. This is where we have one of the resolutions passed by the independent India. That happens to be the Scientific Policy Resolution of 1958, which was adopted by Homi Bhabha. This resolution made a beautiful introspection when it comes to the applications of science and technology. Immediately after independence, this resolution, which was drafted by Homi Bhabha, went on to say, for the greater prosperity of the country, yes, the will of the people is very important. Apart from the will of the people, what we require is modern age in technology, raw material, and capital. So the emphasis was laid on technology. In fact, we have the first Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru, who went on to say it is science alone that can solve the problems of hunger and poverty, of insanitation and illiteracy, of superstition and deadening customs and traditions, of vast resources running in waste, a rich country which has been inhabited by the starving people. So he says if all these problems that are present in India, economic and social, has to be overcome, what we require is the prosperous introspection and evolvement of science and technology, says Jawaharlal Nehru. It is he who galvanized and laid the foundations when it comes to science and its advancement, because of which India's international science and technology engagement and its very foundation was laid, says the author. Further, he goes on to say, as India was asserting itself in the scientific domain, in the scientific world, it was not that easy for India. Why? Because we have United States of America, which was not making it easy for India. And when India wanted to advance on its nuclear program and also on the space based program, what we had was sanctions imposed by number of countries against India. It can be United States of America or it can be Japan as well. So when India was exploring the nuclear energy, one for its electricity, the other for its defense purposes, we had United States of America imposing sanctions. And it was not easy for India as well, again when it comes to the space based technology, as India was trying to evolve as a major power when it comes to space. Added to the problems was the expansionist policy of China as well. China was also being aggressive as well, and the consequential systems did not let us evolve as a scientific superpower. But with time, we were able to overcome all these challenges and we were able to evolve as an economic power as well. And in the 21st century, India is one of the major powers when it comes to economic prosperity. And as a result, because of the economic dynamism, which led to more proactive assertion, India was able to evolve its scientific, that is space based, as well as the nuclear program. So what do we have here? We have the evolvement of what is called as the scientific diplomacy. What is the scientific diplomacy we are speaking about? We have our space programs where number of other countries are asking its satellites to be launched from India, which is an advancement of the science based diplomacy. Further, in order to give rise to it, in order to give boost to it, in order to enhance the programs of the scientific cooperation, the Office of Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India was also established as well. With these plans and programs, a foundation was laid and India was able to reduce its dependence on foreign countries. Apart from this, it also had outreach programs as well. It was able to interact with number of countries, able to develop the scientific advances as well. Let's say for example, with countries like United Kingdom, Japan, Israel, Germany, and with multiple other countries, it also strengthened the partnership on the basis of scientific development. While this was happening on the external front, on the internal front, India did come up with the Science and Technology Policy of 2003, Science, Technology and Innovation Policy of 2013, and with the Modi administration in picture, it further gave impetus to the scientific technology as the forefront of diplomatic engagement. Number of wings, number of divisions were given birth when it comes to the Ministry of External Affairs. We have the Cyber Diplomacy Division, we have the E-Governance and Information Technology Division, a new Emerging and Strategic Technologies Division, all to manage the science and technology issues when it comes to the nation's diplomatic matrix. So what we have is a foundation laid even on the external front when it comes to science and technology. While all this was happening on the external front, COVID-19 hit us all. This is where it came as a blessing in disguise indirectly for India. How? On one side, it was catastrophic, it was disasters for the entire world, including India as well, but it was also a blessing in disguise for India. How? Whenever the world was hit with all these pandemics, or whenever we speak about medicines and other issues, it is India which is serving the developing countries. It is India which is able to export all these medicines and pharmaceutical equipments as well. In this particular backdrop, when COVID 19 hit the world, it was India which was able to export hydroxychloroquine and paracetamol. Number of countries did acknowledge it as well. Brazil and in fact United States of America also thanked India. India's pharmaceutical firms had also entered into making and manufacturing of vaccines. We have one of the institutes in India called as the Serum Institute of India. This had entered into partnership with United Kingdom's Oxford AstraZeneca for a vaccine project in order to generate one of the vaccines. Then we have the indigenous Bharat Biotech as a company which was also able to generate Covaxin as well. As a result, what we became is a vaccine hub. We were able to manufacture vaccines and at the same time we were able to export to number of countries world over. But we also had competition from Chinese vaccines as well. But India had advantage when it came to the Chinese vaccines. What are those advantages? One is in terms of the cost, the other is in terms of transparency. When it comes to transparency, we know for the fact that there is a lot of concealment of test data as well as lack of transparency when it comes to the information about the manufacturing of the vaccine. In fact, we have one of the examples from Brazil, which was initially planning to deploy China's Sinovac and eventually raised concerns with respect to efficacy and the safety of the vaccine and eventually went ahead with India's Bharat Biotech. And China's health diplomacy, also like other developmental assistance programs, came up with some prohibitive costs as well. They also wanted Bangladesh to give some of the statistics and data when it comes to the clinical trials. So because the countries were doubtful about the transparency and the cost of the Chinese vaccine were comparatively more, and at the same time they were asking for certain data from other countries, most of the countries did not favor the Chinese vaccine, instead went ahead with India's vaccine. So what are the advantages? India's gifting of vaccine to number of countries world over, whether it is immediate neighborhood, which includes Maldives, which includes Nepal, which includes Bhutan or Bangladesh, they were able to polish the global image and earn the goodwill from the immediate neighborhood. And at the same time, this was used as a powerful software tool to counter the Chinese influence in South Asia, Africa, and elsewhere as well. Apart from this, India's gesture of sharing this vaccine supply was able to stand in conflict with the agenda of the rich countries. How? When you speak about the rich countries, let's say for example United States of America, or we speak about what is called as United Kingdom, these countries are rich countries. They were supposed to take the responsibility, but instead of they exporting the vaccine, they entered into contracts with the organization and developed what is called as the vaccine nationalism. So they were able to support only its people but not the global community, which is where India stood out and it objected and disputed this whole claims of vaccine nationalism and gave importance to the very philosophy of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, where world is one single family. India's philosophy of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is standing tall against the rich countries, and its vaccine nationalism is the third major advantage. The fourth advantage is in reference to the pharma exports. With the goodwill that we were able to generate and polish our image, we might in the near future be able to send and export most of the pharmaceutical products. So what we will have is increase when it comes to the pharmacy, as India is the major manufacturing hub, says this article. Apart from this, the article also focuses on some of the concerns as well. Yes, we were able to increase the capacity. Yes, we were able to create an establishment or an environment for the development of science and technology. But there are challenges that India has to look at, and it has to address all these challenges. What are these challenges? India's financial apportionment or the budgeting when it comes to science and technology is comparatively less. We have to make sure that there are more universities, research and development when it comes to the scientific domain and in reference to the medical advancement as well. Apart from this, India's young scientists and technology should know what is the scientific foreign policy objective and at the same time the politicians in India, the administrative personnel in India should also know what has been the major impediment when it comes to advancing of the scientific domain. So both of them should know each other. They should enter into a consensus, enter into a common platform, discuss all the challenges and make sure that all these key concerns that is prevalent in the scientific domain, in the science and technology domain is addressed, says this article. So India going forward will have to effectively make use of this particular crisis into an opportunity, so the decision makers can even prepare to make sure that all these vaccines are supplied to the developing countries and increase the bonhomie with multiple other countries in the world. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about sedition. We have discussed about this article in the last week's CNA. Our primary focus today would be in reference to what the author is trying to convey in terms of whether the law of sedition should be present or it should be removed from the statute books. In this particular backdrop, one of the important landmark judgments when it comes to the case of sedition is Kedarnath Singh versus the state of Bihar. The question that was asked in front of the Supreme Court is whether sedition is legitimate, whether it is legal, or it has to be declared unconstitutional. So the Supreme Court of India gave this particular judgment. It said that we have Article 19 of the Indian Constitution. It speaks about freedom of speech and expression. There is also called as reasonable restrictions. So sedition as a principle falls under reasonable restriction, says the Supreme Court of India, and has upheld that sedition in itself should not be removed, but it will act as a reasonable restriction. Apart from this, it also gives certain limitations as well. What are these limitations? Let's say, for example, everything and anything cannot be sedition. Let's say if there is a government scheme or a program or a mechanism, and if there is an individual or a person who is commenting against it, this is not sedition. In case there is a person who is making criticisms or comments in reference to the scheme or a program against the government, that is not sedition. So it said sedition can be only those where you are asking people to take up the arms, you are inciting people to violence against the government established by law in order to create what is called as public disorder. In such a case is where we will have what is called as sedition, said the Supreme Court of India. In case you are criticizing the government, that is not sedition, but if people take up the arms, there is a major problem of public order issue. That is when sedition as a case can be put up on an individual or a person, says the Kedarnath Singh versus the state of Bihar. Another important judgment came in reference to Bombay High Court in the case of cartoonist Asim Trivedi. According to this particular judgment given by the Bombay High Court, it went on to say, let's say there is the executive, that is the police officers. In case they are arresting a person on the charges of sedition, they should not directly arrest this particular individual, put him behind bars, but instead evaluate whether that particular circumstance means that this particular person has to be booked under what is called as the sedition law as prescribed under 124A of the Indian Penal Code. What was the guidelines given by the Bombay High Court? It said evaluation of the material to form an opinion. So what is this evaluation? Basically, try and understand if this particular person has spoken something which is causing disaffection, enmity and disloyalty against the government. In all these cases, if that enmity that is being created is causing public disorder or inciting people to violence, that should be the case for sedition. So evaluate, just don't arrest, but only if you get the facts, only if you are able to make an opinion that this could give rise to public disorder, arrest that particular person. If you are not able to make this particular opinion, ask this legal opinion, and this legal opinion has to be given in writing from a law officer of that particular district, and a secondary opinion from the state's public prosecutor should also have to be taken, said the Bombay High Court when it comes to Asim Trivedi case. But what is the major issue right now? The major issue is this has not been followed in number of cases, and the major problem is when we look into the statistics from the National Crime Records Bureau between 2016 and 2019, the number of cases of sedition under section 124A increased by 160%, while the rate of conviction dropped to 3.3% in 2019 from 33.3% in 2016. So what we actually see here, that the number of cases of people booked under the charges of sedition was increasing, but the convicted people was comparatively less as well. So the executive is not taking due precautions when it comes to addressing or arresting people when it comes to the charges of sedition. Apart from this, the court went ahead and also said that there have been n number of cases where this particular legislation has been misused, and in fact they have not been following the court directions, and they are also grossly ignored, says the Supreme Court of India and number of high courts in India as well. Looking at the statistics, the number of people who are arrested under the charges of sedition is increasing, and in all these cases, the judgment laid under the Kedarnath Singh versus the state of Bihar was not taken into picture. In fact, when we look into this particular legislation, it was introduced by the British Empire, and they were the ones who introduced this particular section as well, and now it is United Kingdom which has repealed the offence of sedition in the year 2010, but India continues to have this particular legislation. Back in the year 2018, we have the Law Commission of India, which also went ahead and said that this particular legislation will have to be relooked, or it has to be repealed or taken away from the legislative books, said the Law Commission of India. So the Law Commission of India, headed by former Supreme Court Judge Justice B.H. Chauhan, published a consultation paper which went ahead and said that we have to rethink about this particular section, or in fact repeal the provision of sedition from the Indian Penal Code. Now let's imagine that this particular section is very important and it is acting as a reasonable restriction. So what we require is this section in the statute books. So instead of currently going with what is called as the text-based interpretation, what the authors suggest is what is called as effect-based interpretation. What is this effect-based interpretation? This is currently present in Western countries like United States of America. So what is this effect-based interpretation? Basically, we are not just looking at the text, but we are interpreting what would be the consequences of this particular word. Ideally, whenever sedition charges are being booked, only the wordings is taken into picture, but when it comes to the effect-based test, the consequences of those words are taken into picture, and only then the person needs to be convicted is what is this effect based test. So the author in this particular backdrop brings a statement made by additional sessions judge recently while granting bail in one of the cases of sedition. He says the law of sedition is a powerful tool in the hands of the state to maintain peace and order in the society. However, it cannot be invoked to quieten the disquiet under the pretense of the muscling the miscreants. This is where the author goes on to say that this whole idea of sedition is being misused and grossly misappropriated as a legislation. So he goes on to say that India is a country of diversity. Every person has its own perspective and viewpoints as well. So we have to respect the viewpoints, as the preamble of the Indian Constitution speaks about the principles of justice, liberty, equality, fraternity as noted in the preamble of the Indian Constitution. So he says all these diverse views will have to be respected. That does not mean that in case there is a particular person who is igniting passions, asking people to take up arms against the government, this should not be respected. But in case there is such a violation, then law should take its proceedings. But in the normal circumstance, if there are people who are asking the government questions, that is not sedition. If people are questioning the government, that is not sedition. So the views of the people will have to be respected, says the author. This is where he brings into postulate one of the important Vedic spirituality philosophy called as Ano Badraha Kratavo Yantu Vishwataha, which means let noble thoughts come to us from all directions. When people are questioning the government, it means there might be some issues or there might be some hindrances when it comes to the actual execution of the government policies. So the government will have to relook into its particular legislation, come up and change this particular issue, because the popular sovereignty ultimately rests with the people of India. So what does the author say? The author in this particular case goes on to say that the only toolkit that we have to respect in India is the Constitution of India. So the principles of freedom, life and liberty has to be respected by the state is what the author concludes with this particular article. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about one of the important programs of the Government of India called as the Animal Husbandry Infrastructure Development Fund. What is this Animal Husbandry Infrastructure Development Fund? This is rupees 15,000 crore Infrastructure Development Fund. What will happen? It has been approved for incentivizing certain sections of the society. Let's say for example individual entrepreneurs, private companies, MSMEs, farmer producer organization and section 8 companies to do what? To establish what is called as the dairy processing and value addition infrastructure, meat processing and value addition infrastructure and animal feed plant as well. So what is this program all about? This is an infrastructure fund which has been given to all these people where they can be the beneficiaries of this particular program so that they can establish these particular infrastructures for the advancement of the animal husbandry sector. In this particular backdrop, what are the major objectives that the government is looking at? Why is that this infrastructure fund has been developed by the government of India? That is because when you look into the milk sector and the meat processing capacity, most of it is in the unorganized sector. What is the government expecting? The unorganized sector to be pushed into the organized sector so that the transactions can be taken into, and what we will have is more milk and meat producers in the organized sector. So when it is in the organized sector, the government would have the numbers, the government would be able to evolve a strategy. So the idea is about increasing the meat and the milk production over a period of time. The second objective is to provide price stabilization for the producer, and at the same time it also wants to make sure that the quality of milk and the meat is given to the consumer as well. So on one side for the producers there is value and price stabilization, on the other side quality of meat and milk is also guaranteed to the consumer as well. This is where the objective is twofold in nature. Added to this, they also want to enrich the quality of food by which the nutritional status is also guaranteed to the people. This will also generate employment opportunities as well. And finally, exports and imports can also be regulated when it comes to the milk as well as the meat industry. These are the objectives when it comes to Animal Husbandry Infrastructure Development Fund. How will this process be implemented? Let's say there is a particular project. Let's say with respect to the dairy processing, the cost of the project is about 1 lakh. Just hypothetical numbers. So if this particular project costs about 1 lakh, 10,000 will have to be invested by this particular individual or any of these beneficiaries, and rest 90,000 can be taken as part of the loan. So the 90,000 will be given by the government as part of the loan, and they would also get 3% interest subvention to all the eligible beneficiaries. So what should they do? They should apply this particular proposal in what is called as the Udami Mitra portal. Let's say I am a person who is wanting to take the loan, or I want to be the beneficiary of this particular program. So what do I have to do? I have to file an application and put it out in the Udyami Mitra portal. This is one of the portals developed by Small Industries Developmental Bank of India, where they have launched it to improve the accessibility of credit and holding services to micro, small and medium enterprises. This particular infrastructure also has greater prospects as well. One is in terms of chilling infrastructure, second is in terms of animal feed, third is boosting the poultry industry and also benefits the climate change as well. When we speak about the chilling infrastructure, what is the major issue right now? When you look into the rural sector, we have the milk production, we also have poultry industry as well. This has to be stored, this has to be made sure that there is chilling infrastructure, which means refrigerators are required for storing of the milk, but unfortunately currently we do not have enough infrastructure. So in case people are present who want to take up this particular load, they have to improvise on the chilling infrastructure so that refrigeration and other similar equipments are provided at the rural level. The second is about animal feed. What is animal feed? It is the food given to the domestic animals, especially that of the wild stock. As of now, they are not able to meet the intended standards. So what we require is support to the mineral mixture plants, silage making units and animal feed testing laboratory. So the government of India will also have to tie up with the domestic startups as well, so that they can collaborate with them and develop new varieties of green fodder and enriched animal feed as well. So what we require is the affordable cattle feed is the second objective. The third is boosting the poultry industry. India is currently the fourth largest chicken meat producer and the second largest egg producer as well. In the near future, if we are able to provide enough infrastructure for this particular industry, it will not only be a boost to the economics, but it will also serve the nutritional status as well. Apart from this, this particular poultry industry and the eggs generated from it is also part of the midday meal schemes. It is also part of number of school programs as well. Meeting what is called as the nutritional status is the third one. And finally, because we are able to expand on the infrastructure, because we are able to provide energy efficient system, this will further mitigate the carbon footprint in that particular region. So this is what we have to understand in reference to this particular scheme. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about Tolpava Kutu. Tolpava Kutu happens to be a shadow puppetry. This is from the state of Kerala. It is a unique shadow puppet theatre from the state of Kerala and is preserved as a family tradition by the Pullavas. It is an ancient peculiar ritualistic art dedicated to Bhagavati, worshipped by the people of Kerala as Mother Goddess. As a ritualistic art form, Tolpava Kutu is performed during the months of January to May at especially constructed theatre, and this theatre is what is called as Kutu Madam in front of Bhagavati temple. It is believed to have originated in the 9th century AD and uses what is called as Kamba Ramayana as its basic text. So kindly remember, Tulpava Kutu is from the state of Kerala. There are other examples from different states in India as well. One such example is Ravana Chaya in Odisha, Togalu Gombeyata in Karnataka, Tollu Bommalata in Andhra Pradesh. These can be very important from the preliminary examination point of view. So kindly look into it. Now let's look into the next article. This article says loss of trust. This is an issue in reference to Google and Facebook, that which we have seen in the country of Australia. What is this issue all about has been explained on 31st of January 2021 under the second topic, Google exit threat at 15 minutes 10 seconds. So kindly look into it. We will have more updates with respect to this issue once this particular legislation is passed by the Australian government. We will look at the larger ramifications. As of now, you can just look at the background on 31st of January 2021. Now let's look into the next article. This article dealing with bigger neighbor has again been discussed in our last week's CNA. So kindly look into it. Now let's look into the mains practice questions. What do you understand by vaccine diplomacy? Has it helped India polish its global image and earn goodwill? Evaluate. Second question, in a democratic republic where popular sovereignty is exercised primarily by the people, laws such as sedition have no significance. Critically examine. So please write all your answers on the comment section. Peer review. Give positive feedback to your friends' answers. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.